So business rules suck. Okay, let me rephrase. Business rules don't necessarily always do everything you need them to. Whether it is hiding a section, hiding a tab, hiding a subgrid, painting your mother's house pink. The last one I don't think Power Apps can do for you, except for like scheduling. That's not the point. Anyways, but for business rules, we can take them to the next level. We can make them hide and show tabs, sections, subgrids, whatever, through code. Now, stick with me here. If you don't know how to write code, that is a-okay. I've actually prepared some code to make this a lot easier and a lot more friendly for the people who don't know code. So, let me walk you through taking your business rules to the next level in Load Pro, Business Rules Plus. All right, so the very first thing before we get into all the code, how it works, X, Y, and Z, again, you don't need to know code to be able to participate in this video or learn, or really many things. But what you will need to have is a web resource. Now, to set up a web resource, it's actually super simple. What you'll want to do is go to Power Apps. Now, within Power Apps, I'm going to switch over to my YouTube environment real quick. Now, in Power Apps, I will always recommend you do this. Build inside of a solution. It makes finding things, doing things a million times easier. So, I'm going to go into the solution that I had already pre-built, my Load Pro Business Rules Plus. Now, you'll see I have a few things inside of this, namely that very top one, this web resource, Business Rules Plus. Yes, I'm going to say Business Rules Plus a lot. I named a lot of things after it at 3 in the morning, and now you're here with me. So, with this is a web resource. This is a JavaScript library. Now, for this to create one of these, it's actually really simple. All you need are two things, Power Apps and a file. So let's make a web resource. For our web resource, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go up here to New, and then down to More, and then Web Resource. Cool, we have our web resource. The reason why I say build everything in a solution is because it adds this really nice prefix to the beginning of everything you build. So if you ever need to find anything, you don't have to search through thousands of files. So I already have mine set up, so I'm not going to set up another one. But to set up your web resource, all you have to do, you choose a file. Like for me, mine is here. I have a Load Pro JS here. Open that up. And all of this will pretty much autofill. You can name it whatever you want. The one thing that I will recommend is that you keep in mind what you name this. Typically, I will name mine the same as whatever the file is. So that way it's a bit easier to reference to later. Now, all you would do, set all this up and hit save. That's all you have to do to set up a web resource. Super easy. And later on, I will show you how you can get access to this code, little snippets that I wrote, that you can use over and over again, and you don't have to worry about writing a whole library or knowing JavaScript. But if you do, you can get started with learning code on our on-demand learning platform, where I have an introduction to JavaScript course. I will walk you through everything you need to know about getting started with JavaScript. So, put that away. Now that you have your web resource, I'm going to cancel out of this one because I already have mine set up, and I don't want to add more things that I need. Now, in my form, now I'm in the contact form. You can be in whatever form you want. You can change all these names, all these things, they can be changed. In the contact form, what you're going to do is you'll need to go all the way over to the left here where it says Form Libraries. We're going to ignore the business rules for now because we do not need them. In your form libraries, you're going to add a library here. Now, see, here you have all of the web resources in your entire environment. And this is where your prefixes come in handy because you can search by prefix. Now, I already have my web resource in here, so it's not going to allow me to just add it again because I already have it. But if I wanted to, I could search for any of the Microsoft web resources by just typing in MSDYN. That's their prefix, and based on that, I can search through all of their stuff. But for you, you would just add a new web resource, go through this, or you just find your web resource, click on this little checkbox right next to it, check circle, and press add. All right, mine's already in here, but let me show you how we can get started with this. Now what I want to do is I'm going to open up this model-driven app that I spun up a little while ago. And I'm going to show you what this looks like. All right. Now I need to create a new contact, right? So if I go into new, I have a field on my contact form called contact type. Now contact type is a choice field that has 3 different values inside of it. We'll get into how I set that up and why it makes it a little bit easier if you do customize your choice fields just a little bit further. But for this contact type, I want it to be able to do one of the following. Either if I choose communications to show me the communications tab, show me the technology tab if I choose technology, or show me the medical tab if I choose medical. That's the first thing we're going to set up. So now that you have your library added into your form, let's start setting up that tab. All right, this is where we're going to take a peek at the code behind this. Now in my code here, I have a whole bunch of lines of stuff if you don't know JavaScript or code, but all of this gobbledygook is just a bunch of code that's going to allow us to show a tab based on a value. Now, this does need some information because it can't just randomly show you a tab for whatever, but the information you have to give it is pretty simple and it does have a structure to it. At the top here of this file, I have something called a tab matrix. Essentially, this is just the list of tabs that I have in my form, so that way I don't forget them. And it's going to require 2 things. First off, for this show tab by value function to work, it needs to have the tab's name and whatever value it's supposed to be shown when your field selects it. So I need my communications tab to show up if my contact type is set to communications. Now, on my contact type field, if I edit the table column, my choice for communications has a value of 1. Now, a random number can be generated for this choice. You can set it to whatever number you want. It can't be letters, but you can put it as whatever number you want in order to set it up to make it as easy as you want. Instead of a random number, I have this as the number 1. So for my contact type, when it's set to communications, the value is going to be 1. All right, sweet. Now what I need is the logical name of my tab. This is something that you can set up. Whenever you add anything into your form, whether it's tab, section, subgrid, they all have names associated to them. And this is the particular reason why they have those names associated to them. So on my communications tab, I have the name set to tab comms. Now tab comms is just a simple name that I gave for a communications tab. You can name it whatever you want. So for tab comms, I need to go to my contact type. Now on contact type, I'm going to trigger a behavior, an event. That is going to be over on the right in my events tab. On change, we're going to set up something called an event handler. Basically, event happens, code, handle it. And that's pretty much how it works. Now I need to call a particular function for this. pw load pro br.actions dot show tab by value. All right, and then you're going to want to put in your parameters. It's going to be open curly bracket, all lowercase tab, colon, and then in double quotes, tab underscore comms. We'll add a comma after that. And the next thing it needs is lowercase val for the value of whatever your field is. And mine is going to be 1 because that's my communications tab, communications type. Gotta match them together. All right, I hit done, and then I hit save and publish. One quick thing, always make sure you name everything you use in code with something that's easy to remember and hard to misspell. So tab comms, C-O-M-M-S. Now, could I have 1 M instead of 2? Yes, but I put 2 of them because I always associate comms with 2. Anyways, make sure you name your tabs, sections, subgrids, whatever you are using, just name them something appropriate. Oh, it's done. Perfect. Now what we're going to do is I'm actually going to go press F12 on your keyboard or open the DevTools by right-clicking and clicking inspect, like so. This will pull open your DevTools, and then all you have to do is right-click on the reload button and press empty cache and hard reload. All done. So now what we're going to do is we're going to test this out. Always test your code, even if you don't want to. All right, for the contact type, we're going to set the contact type to communications. Boom, my tab is here. And there is some hidden information inside of this. I'm actually going to close this because it keeps flashing at me. So my communication tabs pops open. I do have a technology tab. And if I switch to it, it's going to give me an error. Why is that, Ace? Why is it going to give you an error? Because there is no tab that matches my value. So when it's looking for a tab to apply, there's nothing there. That's one thing you have to keep in mind. You can't add more tabs than you currently have or values that don't exist. The code is very, very careful to let you know that that is not going to fly. So make sure to add what you need and throw away what you don't, like Marie Kondo. All right. So now that I have my communications tab popping open when I need it to, the next thing that I want to do is I have a subgrid in here. So I'm going to flick back to my form. I do have a subgrid under this communications tab. I also have something that says trace calls. Now, what I want to happen, and something you can technically do with a business rule, I want to have, if I type anything into my communications details, like details about communications, I want to give the ability to trace my calls, yes or no. Now, could I set up a business rule to just reveal trace calls in the same section? Yes. But what I want to happen is I want a separate section to pop up entirely that'll say, hey, trace your calls, yes or no? Here's all your traced calls. All right, so let's set it up so that way whenever I type anything into my communications details, I can set my trace calls to be visible and that entire section to be visible. So what we need to do is we need to set up an onChange event. On change of our communications details, I want to reveal this section. So I'm going to click on communications details, same deal, go to my events, and then I'm going to add an event handler to the onChange property. Sweet. Now, this one is going to be my PW, load pro, BR actions, show section, and this is going to be show section if value. Yes, you can copy paste this. That is totally fine if you want to, like I'm about to do. Now, before I jump away from this code, actually, I can just show it to you while I'm here. In show section by value, you have 3 parameters. The first one we can ignore. CRM is going to give it to us. That's not the right thing. The first one we can ignore. Our model-driven app is going to give that to us. The second and third one, however, we do actually have to provide to our code. So the first one is going to be the name of the tab, and the second one is going to be the section name. So why do you have to do both of those? In order to show a section, you have to let, well, the code know where the section is. If I have multiple tabs and I say, just give me the section out of somewhere, that's the effect of sticking your hand in a ball pit and trying to find your keys. Not very fun. Well, maybe. Anyways, so for tab name and section name, we're going to show section if value, pass the execution context. Always pass your execution context. Context is key. Now, the 2 things that I need to pass in is going to be that same tab underscore comms. Ace, why are you passing all this in with double quotes around it? I want to make sure that it is passed in as a string, so I always put double quotes around mine. You don't necessarily need it to be. I just do it just to be sure. So now, tab comms, and I need to know what the name of my section is. Luckily, I already went ahead and named my section. Sect underscore comms. Done. Don't believe me? Boom, there it is. Sect comms. Now, for my communications details, remember, communications details in the events, onChange, and set your handler. Done, and then save and publish. All right. Okay, that is done publishing. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go back to that contact form. I'm gonna do my hard reload, if it will I'm pressing the wrong key. I have two keys right next to my keyboard. One is to switch off of function lock. The other one is to turn up my volume. So I might have pressed the wrong key a couple times. All right, for our form, I'm going to empty my cache and hard reload one more time. Now, I'm fine to do this because I'm not actually working on anything. If you are able to, I highly recommend having a developer environment or a dev environment to work in. Now, this doesn't mean your environment type is a developer. It's just one that you can build and test all your things in without breaking everything for everyone else. Only break things for yourself in your code. All right, now I am back into my form. Now I'm going to set my contact type to communications, get that tab to pop up. And then in communications details, I'm going to type something with no typos. Impressive. All right, now that my section has appeared, one thing that you will notice is that I don't have my subgrid there. And that's because I have trace calls set to no. Now, by design, you can't hide a subgrid with a business rule because technically, when you are creating a record, subgrids don't exist. They get created afterwards because otherwise there's nothing to hook it up to. It's like trying to plug in a cable to air. Doesn't do much. What we need to do is set our subgrid to be visible, like so, when we set trace calls to yes. Now, this wouldn't have gone to appearing or disappearing if I hadn't created the record yet. That's why we had to create Chapel Row. So let's go ahead and set that up really quickly. What we need to do is on our trace calls field or whatever field you have set up, we're gonna add one final on change event handler. Now, this is gonna be the same. PW, load a pro. That's so typed wrong. I'm just gonna click on one of these and just chop off the end. All right, this one is going to be show subgrid on value. So what this is going to do is you need two things, a subgrid and a value, but and the parameters are actually switched. So pass your execution context. I see you not clicking on it. Click the checkbox. It'll make everything work better. All right. So in order to make our parameters in here, I need to provide it with a value first. So the value that I care about, because it's a true false field, is true. And the subgrid is going to be called SG_comms. Boom, Dunsky. Now, if I hit save and publish, now that that is done, we are going to switch back to our contact form. I still have my DevTools panel open. So I'm going to just right click, empty cache and hard reload. Now, we can make sure that when we type something, one thing. Before, I do have something typed in here, but I don't have the ability yet to load the same behavior whenever the form loads itself. It's kind of defaulting to whatever behavior was happening beforehand. So for my communications major, I'm going to add some more details just so I can get at that tab or that section or the section in the tab. I'm going to set my trace calls to yes, and you can see your subgrid appear here. Now, one last thing. I want my contact types to reveal all my tabs because I worked very hard on them for 20 minutes. And two, I want the behavior that is happening, well, on load to load. So we're gonna set up one final event handler and then you're done with this video and you can go outside, I guess. So we're gonna ignore and save. So the last thing you need to do before you can go and do whatever you're gonna do with the rest of your day is we need to add an onload to our form. So I can just click anywhere in this gray space to get at the form because that's really what I need. And what I'm gonna do is go to the events tab. Now in this events tab, you have two things, on save and on load. I'm not saving things, I'm loading things. So on load for our event handler, first thing, pass in your execution context. It's the only thing you need for this one. But we are going to set up PW loaded pro BR loaded. So just the name of the script and the loaded function. What that's going to do is it's going to essentially just trigger everything else. In the code here, I have it doing a couple things. First thing I wanted to do, fire on change for my type field, so that way the communications tab pops up. Then I want you to fire on change for the communications details, so that way my section pops up. Then the last thing, that's a little bit of a special thing for later. So let's hit done here, because the execution context is the only thing you need to pass in. Because, well, I just need to know what's in the form to press the buttons on the form, in short. So hit done, hit save and publish, let your Wii music play as the circle spins. So now that that's saved and published, let's do our final testy here. All right, empty cache, hard reload. My communications tab pops in, perfect. Now, I don't have to type anything in this communications details because my onload took care of it for me. If I were to set trace calls to no, save this, when it reloads, I'm going to ignore and save. Yes, there's 2 of Chapel Roan, don't worry about it. On my load, it's going to perform the same behaviors. Now, for my communications, if I have all of this removed and I save this, if I refresh the page, no matter what I do, it's going to perform the same behaviors. The form reloaded, it's brand new. It's not performing the behaviors we don't want it to. So that's how we can set up our web resources to improve our business rules. We can show and hide tabs, show and hide sections, and we can show and hide subgrids after the record's been created. Well, that is all for me. If you're looking for the code that I used in this video, you can find it down below in the description, wherever they put it. And that is all. If you want to learn how to write in JavaScript and understand all of those lines of stuff that I had on this screen earlier, you can check out my Introduction to JavaScript course. And you can let me know down in the comments if you think you can do it better in low code. Until then, and until the next video, bye!